Rimbo, you and Nancy scurry on up. Barb and Jimmy, Tom and Karen, and if the Wanderers want to join in or anyone else, and we will judge by applause in each phase who's winning, and then I will be the final decision. Toby, thanks for that $50 bill. You know, you and Sue, Mesmer High School, all that stuff, I know where you're coming from. I know most of you would think this would be very difficult, but with Al White playing, it will not. Jim, you're dancing, not talking, which is very difficult. Al, are you ready? All right, let's bring our contestants out. Nancy and Rimbo, Sue and Toby, Barbara, Jimbo, and I love the Guskowski's excitements for this. And I will comment as we go along.
Yes.
Come on. Jimmy, Toby, Sue is ready. Take your shoes off. Tom, don't be afraid to join in. Mr. Wolf, Mrs. Wolf, let's bring it out on. How about Mr. Van? Oh, the Guskowskis and the Rambos, they're tough. Here we go, a little polka. Wallachs, join in. Saransky's joining in. Wow. Rambo, I didn't know they polka in North Carolina. Come on, here we go. Number 3, Nancy. Let's go, Sue. Look at Rimbo, he's fired up. Zurich wants, oh no, he's going. How sweet. I'm going to go couple number 1. Give us applause. Couple number 2. Oh, Toby, yay! And Mr. North Carolina, Rimbo number 3. All right, in my hermetically sealed choices is a tie. Well, how about we have Guskowski, Toby, and Rimbo just dance by themselves. All right, stick it up there.
When it's cold outside,
That's good.
I've got the rubber man.
You can't pay for this kind of a thing.
I guess you say what can make me feel this way is lighter. Talking about my girl. I've got so much money. It would be
Oh my goodness. Sue, keep it
I've got a sweeter song than the birds in the trees.
Now, I I'm gonna call on a couple of alumni to share some thoughts, and if you wish to, you can as well. Mr. Daly.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you. Here's what happened. An email came through, and it made mention of an expectation that I would recall high school, especially the speech team. The microphone's okay? You're here?
Yeah.
Okay. Some of you are looking glazed over. I just want to. So the committee had the idea that I would remember high school and talk about it, and it's fundamentally a good sounding idea, except I can't remember what I did 2 weeks ago. We'll give it a try. Brother Joe Tower was himself quite a talker, and he had a lot to do with organizing the speech team. And you know, I was young, and he said something. He's a very kind man. He said something to the effect of, "You seem to talk too much in class, so there's a team for you." And I could read on his face that what he was really thinking was, "I have heard about you at football practice, and the team you should be on is the speech team." Very wise man. Jerry Van Handel is the person we should be going to for memory. Jerry can remember what we got for lunch. I mean, he can name the things that we got for lunch, which is okay. You can kind of expect that, and you can fake your way through it. But he remembers how much it cost. I can recall that lunch was someplace in the building. The speech team was a very enjoyable experience for me, and Jerry Semler made such a phenomenal impression on me because he could dive into huge quantities of information and process it and get ready for these events where he was supposed to be prepared to talk on almost any subject of current events. And he could commit all of these things to memory, and I do remember how very, very impressive he was. It was an event, the whole speech thing was really a nice experience when it came to making friends. You had a chance to make friends with people from other schools. And I was really enjoying that, except I noticed that all of the friends I was making from the other schools were men, and there seemed to be something missing, and I discovered that if you said to a young woman, I saw what you did and it was really good, that was a very, very effective kind of thing to say. And Jim, I don't know if you remember the young red-haired woman that I spent time with from Pius High, but that was how I met her, and so it was a very effective learning tool for how to get along with women. I had so little practice. The friendships. I can't go on without mentioning Dick Hurl. Such a phenomenally talented guy, and he's left us with a lot. And I can't start to tell Dick Hurl stories because it won't be terrific. But the summer after we graduated, Dick and I and 3 other people were the proud owners of a 1946 Chevrolet, which 5 of us drove for a summer. That's the end of my experience. But before I stop, a big thanks to the organizing committee, Tom and Jim. And Mr. O'Connor, thank you so very much for that fantastic fantastic website. Thanks again.
Thanks, Joe. You know, we could go on without additional music, but ETK and my good friend Jerry would be disappointed. Mr. Jerry, would you please take the mic and tell us a little bit about that band?
Do I have an hour?
If Sass doesn't interrupt.
It's amazing what Geritol can do, right? Look at this guy. Still looks like he could play football. I got one quick Dick Hurl thing too, so I'm going to just ditto it. I don't know, many of us probably don't know, but Dick Hurl was in the band for 2 years. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a guy, all right. I'm going to tell one quick story about a guy named Peter Funk. Does everybody know him?
Yeah.
He was, in my opinion, he was kind of a guy that didn't stand out in the crowd. He was back there in the group a little bit, and but he could play tenor sax like no one. When he came to Don Bosco High School as a freshman, he could not read a note of music. He was totally self-taught on the saxophone, and he actually began to learn music as he went through school. And he carried his saxophone everywhere he went. No matter where he went, he had the sax with him. And according to his little obit that was published just a while back, he actually had several saxophones after a while that he carried around. And he came over to my house one time for a picnic with our family, and it wasn't 2 minutes, he had the sax out and he was playing outside for the picnic. He was just that kind of a guy. He was dedicated to his craft. And I guess the story that I really wanted to mention was he ended up actually playing with the late great Al Hirt. He ended up going to New Orleans and playing in Al Hirt's band for a length of time. I don't know how long, but I actually saw pictures of him with the group up down there. Al Hirt owned a jazz restaurant or bar down there, and Pete, later known as Pete Fontana, that was his stage name, played with Al Hirt. Okay, last story. You've got a minute yet? Okay.
Go for it.
Cliff Hudlett and I were one evening coming from a concert, a late concert. Don't ask me, I don't remember the details of it, but we were in that corridor between the gym and the school building, whatever you called that thing, playground. Occasionally we used it as a parking lot. We
Smoking,
yeah,
getting a quick drink. Yeah.
all right. So this was fairly late at night, and we looked up, and up on the 3rd floor, there was a light in the chemistry lab. And we said, what the heck is this, you know? You remember this at all, Cliff? Okay. No.
Oh, he remembers well.
So I said, well, should we go up there? And he says, yeah, I suppose. So we snuck in the building. Well, the lights were on the 1st and 2nd floor. But once we got to the steps going up to the 3rd floor, it was pitch black. Talk about an eerie feeling, you know. We were saying, wait a minute, maybe we should rethink this. So we continued on up those creaky steps. This was before the terrazzo steps were put in. Those creaky wooden steps that made a sound. We knew we couldn't sneak up on anything. Anyhow, we finally get to the door of the lab, and we looked in. And they had glass windows, remember? Bottles and beakers and bubbling stuff was going on in there. I mean, it was just like out of a Frankenstein movie. You know, it was unbelievable. Green colored liquid and red, and holy man, what's going on in there? And sure enough, sitting right next to all this stuff was Brother Meyer. So now we're here, we got to go through with this. I mean, we're men, right? So we knock on the glass window, and he looks at us. And that look, that first look, you know.
Yeah.
I thought, we did the wrong thing, Cliff. Well, he motioned us in. So now we're in, go inside. And Brother Meyer was the most cordial guy, started to tell us chemistry-wise what he was doing. Of course, I didn't do well in chemistry. I know everybody in this room did.
Sass got me.
Yeah. So he started saying what he was doing, and think electrolysis, blah, blah, blah. I finally got to the punchline, or the bottom line. He said, I'm really extracting gold from jewelry. I said, holy cow, that's amazing. He says, yeah, and I over a few nights here, I've gotten a lot of gold from you. I said, wow, is that weird, huh? Yeah, cool. So I walked down the corridor afterwards, and Cliff and I were shaking our heads. I noticed the next day in class, every now and then the brothers would smile, and I'd see gold teeth and gold fillings, and I said, oh, now it makes sense. It does, finally. That's a true story, and Cliff doesn't remember it, he says. But kind of related to the band.
Thank you. I'd like to call on my good friend Ralph Majeska to tell us a little story about our only championship team. Ralph.
Thank you, Tom. I came prepared. Tom, did you want to say something about that picture first?
Go ahead. And I'll
Okay. First of all, I want to tell you that most of my information comes from Rick Kay and Jim Peters. They saved newspaper clippings of that year. It was unbelievable. For old sports people, there's a saying, it's better to go out on top. Our Don Bosco team, a team with class, may I add, did just that. We were the conference champs with an 8-0 record. We beat Cathedral by that same score, 8-0, in our last game to win the conference. After we won the conference, we went to the state tournament in Menasha. The first game was against Beloit Catholic. We won 12-2. These are some statistics again from Jim Peters. Jimmy Mutcliffe went 1 for 2. I happened to go 2 for 3, and Jim Rogan went 3 for 3, with Jim Peters being the winning pitcher. We lost the semifinal game to Madison Edgewood 7-6. But we came back and took 3rd place in the tournament with an 8-7 victory. Rick Kay was the winning pitcher for that. Our coaches were Mr. Clem Massey and Brother Robert Skloss. Robert Skloss, homeroom 112. Great homeroom because I was in it. Okay. Tom asked me or had me get in touch with Mr. Clem Massey. So I emailed him, and we talked via emails and over the phone. And this is his email to us. Your team was the very first experience I had. I was a naive 22-year-old person, just thankful for a job, because I just married my wife Roberta on August 8th, 1959. Your group treated me with respect and gave me the opportunity to coach and teach within a comfort zone. But yours was the first and cherished as the best. It is difficult to believe you guys played together 55 years ago, undefeated 8-0. You guys were good. His favorite expression, Tom, never give up. Thanks again, and enjoy your times together, as I'm sure you realize how quickly it goes by. Now, I gleaned some other things from Clem when we talked on the phone. Again, he said, Don Bosco is my versed and very talented team. Conference champs, 3rd in the state. Please note that we played in Menasha. That was Coach Clem's hometown. It was a huge stepping stone in his career, he said. The next year, he became the head baseball and basketball coach at Menasha. And he'll never forget that we were a big part of that stepping stone for him. And then he said it was a team anchored by the seniors. Sager, Majeska, Barzek, Kalashinsky, Medlev, Rogan, and Kay. Tom asked me to get some quotes from Clem, and they were, always hustle, always team first, individual record second, respect your teammates, understand your role on the team, and never give up. Coach Clem is now living in San Diego. He retired from coaching at 48 and went into business and then retired at 67. The team had 23 members, and that's way too many to go through, so I'm just going to go through some records of the seniors on that team. Jim Mudloff led the team in a batting average of .521. Bill Barzek was next with an average of .500, followed by Rogan, Sager, and Majeska, each with a batting average of .368. Kalashinsky had an average of .250, and Rick Kay was undefeated as a pitcher. And I guess my favorite memory, and I can't remember, Tom, whether it was the second or third last game of the season. It was the bottom of the last inning, and we were losing by 1 run. There were 2 outs, and there were 2 of our teammates on base, with Jimmy Rogan up the bat. Jimmy Rogan cleared the bases with a triple. What's the most memorable part about it is when he got on third base, Brother Skloss tackled him right there.
The irony of life is we're going to build a wall of champions at Don Bosco, for Don Bosco, and Thomas More at Thomas More. And Ronnie Rogan's the chief architect for Poblaki. And we're using Jim's younger brother, and they've done a tremendous job. 2000, the September 20th of 2015 is going to be a dedication, and I invite you all to come. I asked Jerry Wallach to kind of give us the inside scoop on student government. Mr. Wallach. You know, and if it's half true, it's good.
Well, about as far as student government goes, we'll do that. I'd rather talk about football, but student government, we had all the representation you could possibly have. We had everybody had their homeroom representative, and freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, and then we elected the officers for the year. One of my memories was the election for senior year, and we were all trying hard to get elected to positions on the government body. Of course, the brothers controlled really what we were gonna do anyway. So, but we had plenty of representation. And I remember the election, and I put an effort out there, and I found this in a scrapbook. I gave out dollar bills to everybody, asking for Jerry Wallach for president, and called it a bribe. And I have plenty more that I can generate and get out to the rest of you people. It didn't work too well, because I ended up being the treasurer. I think Bill Barzak was the president, and Joe Bova and Toby May was the secretary. But it was foreshadowing, because I got to handle some of the money during that year, and for the real money. And then I remember one time too, the treasurer became the one that paid the bands for appearing. And we couldn't come up with a band for one of the dances. and I don't know what it was, what the reason was, but my mother decided she'd help. So, being from a South Side parish, and she had gotten plenty of bands, she pulled a polka band out of her basket and sent it over to Bosco, and I think we had one of the best times we've ever had, doing the polka and the schottisch and everything else. So those were those memories. Lots of elections. I know we mentioned Jim Rogan. He was the king of the homecoming that year. Dick Hurl was the prom king, and I got to participate in all those things with Pat. And also the Sodality and the Summa had all their representatives. Mike Zimmer was a prefect that year. I remember the Summa conventions and going to Dayton, Ohio on a train, and I found out real fast that you don't combine train stations and playing cards with people from Texas. Because we were escorted to the train to get out of town. They didn't arrest us, but the police helped us out of town. And then when we went to Chicago, I got a chance with Bill Barzak and Jim Matthews to go and meet Pat, who was in town from Holy Angels at that convention. And we had probably the best time anybody could have. So, anyway, football. I remember Andy Steffen and his rope, and I still carry the scar on the nose that he put because it wasn't low enough in practice. I also remember Bill Todrick was my tackling partner. And we used to lay down head to head, and he'd get up and tackle you, the opposite guy. Luckily, I didn't have to carry him on the hill at Chase, at Barron, but Bill was a great guy. Anything else? Oh, food. Jerry Van Handel. The best food they had at the cafeteria was a barbecue sandwich with some kind of beans. Pinto beans, cowboy beans, whatever. I worked in the candy store, so I got to go down there and eat quick, enjoy the meal, and go in the candy store and try to do a good job. So, okay.
It reminds me of another story. Every 6 weeks at Don Bosco, they had parent-teacher conferences. You know, as a principal, Phil, you can relate to this, and those of you, Vince, in education. What a way to communicate with parents. And parents showed up. Unfortunately, my father and brother Eugene became too good of friends. And Mom would say, "Where were you?" He said, "I was visiting with brother Eugene," you know, and he'd get home at 11. Okay. Toby, I know you might have a few thoughts that you might want to share, and it can have an ethnic issue if you wish. Toby.
Thank you. Well, first of all, you got to thank Tom again and Jim and Vince for all their hard work. But talking about Hurl, Dick Hurl has passed away, unfortunately, at a very young age. But I played piano too when I was a kid, and so Hurl asked me to accompany him in a state tournament. He's going to play oboe. Okay. So this is true story. He's playing the oboe. Hurl did everything. He was magic. Okay. So anyway, so I started playing the piano, the introduction, and Hurl starts on the oboe, and pretty soon I see he's got the reed in his mouth. He sucked the reed right off the oboe. And I keep playing the piano. I'm going, Hurl, what are you doing? Come on. But that's just one story. I mean, the other stories are the Kingsmen, for which I had a great pleasure. We sang at the WCAC convention at the Milwaukee Arena, and there were We think 50,000 people there.
Whoa,
I was there, Toby, you're bad.
47.
I was so nervous. I don't think I sung a word. George carried the whole team. He was something. It was Kelly, myself, Bernie Krieger, and George Lee, obviously the great George Lee, who has done his phenomenal work on Broadway. My favorite brother actually was Brother Skloss. And I loved Brother Osborne. I loved those two guys. But I remember Father Elias too. He was my homeroom teacher, I think, I forget what year. But he wanted to be cool with the guys. You know, he just tried to be the best he possibly could. And back then, the Baltimore Colts had a famous quarterback by the name of Johnny Unitas, if you remember. Only Father Elias said, as he tried to be cool with all of us, Johnny Unitas. But I had some great memories. I have great friends. You guys are all friends. I mean, this is the greatest spirit at high school that I know. And I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And I'm going to turn this back over to Tommy.
Okay. If anyone else would like to say a few words, you're more than welcome. Mr. Rink? You're welcome. If you don't want to, it's okay too. I'm just saying.
I'd rather not, but I will
Oh,
say.
there's a few wisdoms coming.
I will say a few words. On the preliminary plans, I was asked to talk about the Glee Club, which I was a member of, and the Sodality, which I have a vague memory of. And I'm staying at my brother's house, and I asked him to get on Google, and he Googled Sodality, and this is really ironic. It came up, a society, organization dedicated to the special devotion to the Mother of Jesus from St. Thomas More Parish in Clearwater, New Hampshire. I just think that's amazing. But anyway, I was supposed to talk about the Glee Club and the Sodality. I've already talked about the Sodality. And I just want to say, I was a Marianist for 13 years, and it was great. And I've had a good life since then. And I'm missing a family deal in the Wisconsin Dells with my wife, children, and grandchildren, but I wanted to be here because Don Bosco was special. Thank you.
Wow. You know, it's an interesting journey. And it's so fun to be here. Rembo said yesterday, he said, oh my God, we've had so much fun. It's just like we do this all the time. And we don't, but when we get together, it's very easy. It's very congenial. It's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, health is taking a lot of our buddies away. But if you communicate with them over the internet, they love it. Helmick and I were talking all the time, and you know, Meisenheimer, it's an interesting, fun story. I want to thank everybody. We have a few more YouTube interviews to do. Al's going to play some music, and please enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much.